Welcome to Digging Roots, where we uncover family stories, hidden histories, and the moments that connect us to who we are. Now we explore the story of the Endres family, a journey woven with tradition, perseverance, and the moments that define their place in history. Their legacy offers a window into the past and the roots that still connect us today. It's August 31st, 1846, as a church bell rings and a young couple exit the stone chapel, hands clasped tightly. Richard and Ann Hargraves, newly married, step into the crowded streets of industrial Manchester, England. The air is thick with the scent of coal smoke and damp earth, the sounds of iron wheels grinding on cobblestones, the calls of merchants in the square, but their minds are elsewhere. Not on England, but on a land across the ocean. They are not just beginning a marriage, they are about to begin a new life in America. Unlike most newlyweds, Richard and Ann's honeymoon wasn't a trip to the countryside or a stay in the fine London inn. It was a voyage across the Atlantic, aboard a crowded ship bound for America. They endured weeks of rolling seas, damp quarters, and uncertain hope. Their dream? To settle near Chicago. But when they arrived, Chicago was little more than a swamp, the land too wet to farm, the air thick with mosquitoes. They needed a new plan, so they pushed westward where the land was drier and easier to farm, where the promise of America still stretched before them. Richard and Ann bought land from the government, staking their claim near Durand, Illinois. It was a wild, untamed country, nothing like the factories and brick streets of Manchester. But this was their land now. They worked tirelessly, clearing trees, breaking the earth, building a home with their own hands, and soon they had more than just land. They had a place where their family could prosper, a place where their loved ones could join them. And so, in February of 1856, Anne sat down at her wooden writing desk in Rockford, a candle flickering beside her, and she wrote a letter to the family she left behind in England. She began, "It is with pleasure I now sit down and write a few lines to you, hoping to find you in good health." The ink soaked into the thick paper as she continued. "Since the last letter you sent, we have bought 2 plots of land more. We have paid over $300 for them, and it has taken all our money that we laid by, and we are very sorry that we bought the land on your account, and we want you to raise money some way or other to come out. Richard has work for all 3 men all the time, and if you do not like to work for him, he has spoken to 2 printers in Rockford, as they say they want printers and will give good wages. Richard says he will help you all he can till you get a good start. Passage from New York to Chicago, then to Rockford costs $35 or $40 for 2 passengers. Richard had work waiting for them, opportunities they could never have in England, but there were warnings too. You must be very mindful of who you pay your money to, as there are so many thieves. Everything that will make a shilling I will sell. Bring all your own bedding and clothes, and don't wear your best clothes, for they all spoil. Bring some brandy, and do not tell anyone you have it." She even detailed how to bake bread in a frying pan, a skill essential to survival. Richard would leave word at Cash and Robert's store to expect them, and look out for a team that is coming your way. And she promised them a bright future. "We expect a railroad going over our land. We have $3,000 or $4,000 worth of lumber to sell. There are 3 men getting settled in Minnesota. That is going to be great farm country. Land can be got for 10 shillings per acre, and in 5 years it'll be worth $40. She ended with one final plea, for their mother to come too. It was a letter full of hope, full of opportunity. A promise of a new life waiting across the sea. Some families never leave home. Others bet their futures on a new world. Richard and Ann Hargraves had taken that risk, and now they waited to see if their family would follow. For decades, Richard and Ann Hargraves had worked tirelessly to build a life in America. They cleared land, planted crops, and raised livestock. Their family grew, their farm prospered, and for a time it seemed as though fortune had smiled upon them. But life on their frontier was never without hardship. Their daughter, Lucy Olive, was just 3 years old when she fell ill. On July 15, 1856, the family buried her at Crane Cemetery. It was the first grave on their land. It would not be the last. Their eldest son, Thomas, had always been different. Quiet, intense, prone to spells of deep sadness and unpredictable moods. By 1878, his condition had worsened. The family had done everything they could: prayer, home, remedies, patience, but Thomas was slipping further away. The Hargraves made the painful decision to commit Thomas to the Winnebago County Poor Farm, a place where the indigent and mentally ill were sent when families could no longer care for them. Located where River Bluff Nursing Home now stands on the northwest end of Rockford, the Poor Farm housed those deemed unfit for society. It was a harsh place, overcrowded, understaffed, a last resort, and yet even here Thomas was considered beyond their ability to manage. In 1875, Superintendent George Weaver had begun transferring the most severe cases to Elgin Asylum, a facility designed to handle patients who could harm themselves or others. Thomas Hargraves was sent there immediately. He would never return home. In 1882, at the age of 61, Ann Hargraves passed away. She was buried next to her daughter Lucy in the quiet corner of Crane Cemetery. Her death marked the end of an era. Richard, now alone, made a decision that surprised everyone. He left the farm. The land he had worked so hard to cultivate, the home he had built with his own hands, he left it all behind. He returned to England, remarried, and lived out the rest of his years an ocean away. In 1895, he died there. The burden of the farm now fell to his sons, Charles and Walter Hargraves. Charles was just 24, Walter was only 20, and they weren't just responsible for the land. They were responsible for their 18-year-old sister, Violetta, or Letty as they called her. Together, the three siblings carried the weight of the Hargraves name into the next generation. The older sisters, Mary and Elizabeth, had moved on from the harsh farm life of northern Illinois, but their story was only just beginning. Born in 1830 in Porter, Maine, Erastus Bradeen came from a long line of Scottish immigrants who had settled in America in the 1600s. A carriage maker by trade, he later founded Leavitt Bradeen Company, manufacturing stoves, tinware, and sheet metals. His skill with metal earned him a reputation as one of Maine's great disciples of Tubal Cain, the biblical figure described in Genesis as the first blacksmith, the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. But like many men of his time, his life was forever altered by war. In September 1862, Erastus enlisted as a private in Company B of the 23rd Maine Infantry. The unit was organized in Portland, Maine, and mustered on September 29, 1862 for 9 months' service. The regiment left Maine for Washington, D.C. on October 18, 1862, and defended the capital under Grover's brigade until February 1863. The unit performed various other guard duties along the Potomac River, finishing at Harper's Ferry. The 23rd Maine Infantry mustered out of service July 15, 1863, but he wasn't finished. A year later, Erastus re-enlisted with the 29th Maine Infantry, enduring the brutality of battle once more. The 29th Maine Infantry was organized at Augusta, Maine, and mustered in on December 17, 1863, for 3 years' service. The regiment was composed primarily of re-enlisted veterans and was under the command of Colonel George Lafayette Beale, previously the commander of the 10th Maine Infantry. The regiment left Maine for New Orleans, Louisiana on January 31st and fought in various battles in the Red River Campaign. They eventually moved on to Washington, D.C. to fight in Sheridan's Shenandoah Valley Campaign. In April 1865, while transferring by rail from the Shenandoah Valley to Washington, D.C., the regiment's train was pulled onto a siding to allow Lincoln's funeral train to pass. He mustered out of service June 21, 1866. While the brothers remained on the farm in Durand, the oldest sister, Mary Hargraves, set out to make her own way in the city. An expert seamstress, she quickly gained a reputation among Chicago's wealthy elite, sewing gowns and tailored suits for the most distinguished clients. Mary Hargraves met Erastus Wilson Bradeen. He was twice divorced, seasoned craftsman, and Civil War veteran nearly twice her age. Erastus's first marriage was to Sarah Howe in 1856 in Boston. She passed away in 1867, and he remarried Maribah Bean the same year in Portland, Maine. They had 2 sons, Alton and Byron. Erastus and Mary were married during the summer of 1884 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 1888, Erastus and Mary had a daughter in Chicago. She was only 2 years old when Mary became ill with tuberculosis and passed away. Erastus and Mary had become estranged, which left the 2-year-old daughter without a family or home. Mary's brothers received a telegram with the tragic news and traveled to Chicago to take their sister's body and the girl back to the farm in Durand, Illinois. She didn't have a name yet and was referred to as It by some family members. But Charles and Wilson refused to let her remain nameless. They knelt before her and asked, "What name would you like?" The girl thought for a moment, her small fingers fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Then she smiled. Belle Pansy. And just like that, she became Belle Pansy Hargraves. Erastus and Mary's marriage had been strained before her passing. After she died, he never attempted to claim Belle. In 1906, he passed away, buried with Civil War veteran honors at Danville National Cemetery in Illinois. Charles and Walter did what they could for Belle, but in time they realized they couldn't give her the life she deserved. She was given up for adoption to Joshua and Harriet Hartley, a kind couple in Rockford, Illinois. They raised her as their only child. Despite her uncertain beginnings, Belle Pansy thrived. She graduated from Rockford High School in 1908 and did something few women of her time dared to do. She pursued higher education. By 1918, Belle was a graduate of Valparaiso University, a remarkable achievement in an era when most women never went beyond primary school. After finishing her studies, she returned home to Rockford and found work at Emerson Branningham, one of the nation's leading farm machinery manufacturers. From a nameless orphan to an educated, independent woman, Belle Pansy's life was a testament to resilience, determination, and the power of choosing one's own path. The Hargraves family had endured loss, hardship, and separation, but through it all, their legacy continued, and Belle Pansy, the girl who named herself, was just the beginning. By 1894, the Hargraves family faced another cruel blow. Their sister Violetta, Letty as they called her, was changing. It had started slowly, moments of silence, blank stares that stretched too long. Then came the episodes, bouts of confusion, incoherent muttering, hands trembling at the dinner table. It was a pattern they recognized all too well. Their eldest brother, Thomas, had suffered the same fate. Now history was repeating itself. Charles and Walter fought against it, but in the end there was no choice. The records at the Winnebago County Poor Farm describe her as completely catatonic upon arrival, unable to speak, unable to care for herself. a shell of the sister they had once known. But it didn't stay that way. The Letty they had known, the quiet, soft-spoken girl who helped their mother bake bread and once ran barefoot through the fields, was gone. In her place was something unrecognizable. The records called her the most violent patient ever housed at the farm. Letty howled like an animal. She tore at her clothing and attacked anyone who came near. She was kept in solitary confinement because of her violent episodes. Every morning, the orderlies braced themselves for the battle ahead, restraining her, dressing her, trying to keep her from harming herself or others. Most patients this violent were transferred to state asylums, but Letty never left. Charles and Walter had fought and paid to keep her close, refusing to send their sister away to some distant nameless institution. Perhaps they couldn't bear the thought of losing another sibling. Perhaps they believed deep down that she could be saved. On May 8, 1900, Letty Hargraves passed away at the Winnebago County Poor Farm. She was just 36 years old. Walter and Charles laid her to rest next to their mother in Crane Cemetery, just down the road from the house where she had been born. Time pressed forward, and the Hargraves brothers had no choice but to move on. They divided the farm, 2 separate plots for 2 growing families. Walter married Stella in 1897, and together they had 3 children. Charles followed in 1902, marrying Ella and welcoming 3 children of his own. Through heartbreak and hardship, they held on to the land. They held on to family, and in doing so, they held on to hope. While Belle had a new family nearby in Rockford, she remained close with the family of a mother she never really knew. That's another chapter in the story of the Endres family. Every memory adds a little more to their legacy, and to ours. If you've got family stories of your own, share them in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Thanks for joining us on our journey. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Digging Roots.